Hello everyone, welcome to Read the World. I'm Emma, and today I'll be telling you all about the 3 biographies that I read for, I've seen a different Asian American Pacific Islander Heritage Month, Asian American Native Hawaiian Pacific Islander Heritage Month, all of that good stuff, learning all about all of that heritage and people whose ancestors hail from that region of the world. This year I'm reading 3 biographies for each of the commemorative heritage/pride months that we celebrate in American culture. And I will be telling you all about these 3 illustrious people that I had the privilege to learn about this month. I loved all of these biographies. I had an amazing time learning all about these incredible, influential people in American history, and I'm so excited to tell you all about them today. The first book that I read is called Daughter of the Dragon by Yun-Tae Hwang, with the kind of subtitle, Daughter of the Dragon, Anna May Wong's Rendezvous with American History. So Anna May Wong was the first Chinese-American Hollywood actress, and this talks all about her incredible influence in American entertainment. This taught me so much about the Asian American experience around the turn of the century. It touches on the Chinese Exclusion Act that banned Chinese and then later pretty much all Asian people from immigrating to the United States. It taught a lot about just the treatment of Asian Americans in America, both in everyday life, but also in the entertainment industry, all of the difficulties that she had because of laws against, there's a word for it, like something that has to do, non-sanguination, like exsanguination, non-sanguination. There was a law basically against the mixing of the races, scandal upon scandals, that made it so that Anna May Wong wasn't allowed to kiss a white man on camera. So she got to a certain point in her career where she really couldn't move any further up because the next stage would have been these roles as these romantic, beautiful heroines with on-screen romances that she wasn't allowed to portray. Even though she was considered to be extremely beautiful, she was the most beautiful Chinese girl in the world, according to one publication. I think she was just the most beautiful girl in the world at the time. She was so gorgeous. Let me show you these incredible photos that are included in this book that was able to just give me a fantastic idea of what she was like. Look at this stunning diva. Look at this icon right here, okay? Incredible. And then where else? Like, she was not the most beautiful Chinese girl. She was just the most beautiful girl, period. Period. Come on. Oh, look at that. Look. Oh my goodness. The dress, the accessories. She's so gorgeous. Oh my gosh. Like the pearl headpiece. The skirt of the dress. I can't stand it. Also, she was a fashion icon because she just got to a certain point where like she hit a ceiling that she wasn't allowed to surpass, and it was hard for her to continue getting attention. And so she started attracting more attention through her wardrobe. She was trying to keep herself in the public eye with her fashion choices, and I thought that was so interesting, thinking about fashion as a method of personal empowerment and social influence. It also talks a lot about the fact that a lot of the roles that she took were stereotypical, offensive, reductive of Chinese people, and that she was aware of that, and that she was criticized for that by Chinese communities, by Chinese Americans, and especially by China itself. She was born in California and didn't go to China until, I can't remember, like her late 20s or her 30s, maybe her 30s. And when she was there in China, first of all, the Chinese press, had been critiquing her entire career about how her depictions of Chinese people was offensive. And then when she went to China, she was forced to reckon with that in person. She's a deeply intelligent, ambitious woman, so she was already aware of the impact of what she was doing. But then she was personally scrutinized about it when she went to China by all of the reporters that she interacted with, so many of which asked her, like, why are you portraying Chinese people in these offensive ways? Like, why are you doing such poor representation of our country and of our people? And she just talked a lot about how those were the only roles available, and that if Chinese people were going to be visible in Hollywood, that's where she had to start. I loved how it kind of went into that nuance. It talked a lot about a lot of her connections throughout Hollywood, all of the drama that was happening at the time, so much drama. Like, this is good for learning about Asian American heritage and Asian Americans in the entertainment industry. It talks about other Asian American actors and actresses as well. So if you want to learn about that, it's really interesting, but it's also just a fascinating peek into old Hollywood. She started out in silent films and then went into talkies and kind of what that transition was like. I think that this book would appeal to so many people's interests: entertainment, history, Asian American heritage, politics, all of it here. And then I just thought that it was well written. I thought that the author did have a distinct voice that I really enjoyed. I like it when the author has their own voice and that it doesn't feel too much like a textbook. I thought that this did really well at that. And that the author is also Chinese American, and so occasionally he brought in personal insight into the significance of what was going on in Anna May Wong's life. I really understood her impact, her significance, everything that she accomplished for the Asian American community, but also just for America at large, for the entertainment industry. She was truly an indispensable and essential figure, and I just loved getting to know her. I felt like I had met her by the time I finished this book. Oh my gosh, just look at her. Look at her. She's incredible. Oh, and she died kind of young. She had a lot of health issues. And then he went to her grave. The author went to her grave and took a picture of her headstone, which is at the end of the book. And she was just in this kind of small cemetery near LA that doesn't really have a lot of other celebrities in it. And not many people had been visiting. It was kind of tucked away, kind of hidden. It makes me want to go and pay my respects to such an icon. So highly recommend Daughter of the Dragon. It was just fun. And also I learned so much. And that's key. That's key to a good biography. So this is a good one. Next, I read Lost Kingdom: Hawaii's Last Queen, The Sugar Kings, and America's First Imperial Adventure by Julia Flynn Seiler. This was rough. Again, this was also 5 stars. Daughter of the Dragon, 5 stars. This was 5 stars. I learned so much. It was so rough. Oh my gosh. Well, it was just so bleak. It's horrible. What America did to Hawaii is appalling, and this made it really clear exactly what that period was like. All the destruction that was wreaked upon this beautiful island nation. It's all about, the end of the Kingdom of Hawaii, but centered on Queen Liliuokalani, the last queen, who went by Liliu, and how she fought to keep her kingdom. She fought to maintain the royal family's control. She was deeply intelligent, a good diplomat and politician and statesperson who just had too much white person sugar plantation money up against her. She also was a prolific and talented composer. She composed hundreds, more than 100, if not a couple, hundreds of songs, including one of the most famous Hawaiian songs of all time, which is Aloha Oe. That was her song that she composed. I got to know so much about her. This also has some great pictures in it to understand the various players in this story. It's very thorough. It's a very thorough account of the end of the Hawaiian kingdom and a very thorough account of who Liliu was as a person. I think it's also a really important insight into American imperialism and the way that America has kind of slyly, not quite secretly, because they do it openly, but American influence is able to just kind of slide into certain nations and extend their influence in a way that they're able to propagandize in a way that sounds acceptable. Hawaii's the 50th state now, not phrasing it as, we've ripped away the sovereignty of this previously independent nation and whitewashed their culture and ravaged their peoples with disease and taken all of their land. We don't phrase it like that. I also just didn't know very much about Hawaii in general. I didn't realize that Hawaii was not exposed to outsiders until 1778, which is very recently. And so during this period of all of these Europeans and white Americans coming in and taking over and building all of these sugar plantations and taking all the land and all these things, Hawaii was still dealing with just the very early stages of being exposed to foreigners. So like people are dying of foreign diseases that they've never been exposed to before. Missionaries are suppressing their culture. All of these things are assaulting island society at the same time as trying to fight to keep control. Just so many things going on. At the beginning of the book, there's a cast of characters in order of appearance, which is just all of the different people who were involved in all of the events that led to the seizure of Hawaii. And boy, oh boy, it's kind of hard to keep track of. I understand why we need to know all of these people, because all of them had an influence into wresting the kingdom away from the native peoples. Because also, all of the native inhabitants of Hawaii were in favor of keeping the royal family. And the white plantation owner dudes who took Hawaii away from them and forcibly took control of the government were not even, like, had not gotten citizenship or residency of Hawaii. They were just there making money. They were like, oh, we demand like representation and control, even though like they had not tried to be naturalized, they had not tried to become residents, they were just Americans. They were just a white American dudes who just wanted control for profit. A tale as old as time, unfortunately. Oh my gosh, this just made me so upset. It's infuriating. It's like just this whole thing is so frustrating. It should America should not have Hawaii. It should never have happened. It was so appalling. I just think it's something that so few people know and understand about Hawaii. I didn't know anything about the history of Hawaii. I'm pretty sure that when I was in high school, the only time we ever mentioned Hawaii was when talking about like the attack on Pearl Harbor that brought America into World War II. And this book taught me all about how Pearl Harbor was a location that was really important to Indigenous Hawaiians, and there was like a long fight for America to get control of Pearl Harbor before they even took Hawaii, and that was its own conflict. And so we shouldn't even have Pearl Harbor. It's infuriating. It's a highly informative, very thorough history of the colonization of Hawaii, and also just a beautiful portrait of Queen Liliuokalani, her abilities, her influence, the people that she impacted, her efforts to protect her kingdom and her people. She was a grand, wise, regal, creative, caring person who deserved so much more. And I felt privileged to get to know her through this book. So this is a really good one. If you don't know anything about Hawaii, this is the meat of their recent history. Ugh, wow. So also, I feel like when we talk about Asian American Pacific Islander Heritage Month, Asian American Native Hawaiian Pacific Islander Heritage Month, we most often just learn about definitely Asian Americans, mostly East Asian Americans. We don't learn as much about Pacific Islanders and Native Hawaiians. I have found when I was looking for books and stuff, there's not that much out there about Native Hawaiian and Pacific Islander heritage, but I was able to find this one. I got it from my local library. I think it's important to spread that knowledge of such a rich, diverse culture, all of the islands across the Pacific. It's really incredible, really special. Finally, I read Chandra, a biography of S. Chandrasekhar by Kameshwar C. Wali. This is a really interesting one about Professor Subramanian Chandrasekhar, who is an astrophysicist, was a very influential astrophysicist. And listen, I kind of understood what this was talking about. He discovered the Chandrasekhar limit, which is the mathematical demonstration. It's the math that says that white dwarf stars have a limit to how much, is it to their density? There's like a limit to how they can be, which was like the first mathematical implication towards the existence of black holes. Yeah, that was my understanding. There's just so much astrophysics theory and stuff in here that I kind of understood. It did make me want to learn more about astrophysics, so that was interesting, but I definitely want to read something that really spells out astrophysics stuff in more layman's terms. So, things that I liked. I learned a lot about astrophysics, especially in like what kind of felt like the golden age of astrophysics, when like Einstein was alive, Hubble was doing stuff. All of these exciting discoveries were happening in Europe and America, but it was also in the story of this man's life starts in the 30s, which is when like all of that is fomenting, and then kind of ends in like the 80s. He had not died when he died like a couple years after this was published. It was really interesting to learn a lot about like the astrophysics scholar community at such a pivotal time in our understanding of astrophysics. I also hadn't really thought about the fact that a lot of the things that we know about stars and planets and space and stuff we know from math and physics, not from like actual observation. There is observational astrophysics, but that's so much of what we know about stars and black holes and how they work is from math. I just didn't know that. I didn't realize that, which like makes sense, right? Because they're very far away, and I don't know. Wow, there's so much I don't know in this world. There's so much knowledge that I will never have. We'll never truly understand. So yes, astrophysics, very interesting, but also really just gave a very thorough picture of a wonderful man. The introduction does give this disclaimer of like, I am also an astrophysicist. Is he an astrophysicist, or is he just no physicist? The author's a physicist and knew Professor Chandra personally. And so in the introduction, he does say, like, I'm very biased. I think he's an amazing person, and I've always really admired him. Even before I met him, I'd heard about him and thought he was amazing. And everyone that I've ever asked about him thought that he was amazing and incredible. And the introduction is just like a bunch of quotes of being like, he's the kindest man I've ever met. He gave the best lectures that I've ever heard. Other people would like press their ears against the walls and like nearby lecture halls to try and hear him speak. He was also so handsome. He was so beautiful and so handsome and so stylish. He just was like such an incredible presence, and he was so wonderful and fantastic and brilliant and amazing. People love this man. They loved this man. The book really portrays him as if he had no flaws, except that it does appear that he worked so much that he spent almost no time with his wife. Kind of feeling sorry for her. That seemed a little sad. I would have liked to know a little more about her. It just kind of mentioned like she moved to America to be with him and said that she was pretty lonely a lot of the time. It's like, okay, but like can I know more about that experience? So lots about him personally, his relationships, his accomplishments, and then also his experiences as a South Asian immigrant in America in a period when there were not very many Asian people, South Asian people immigrating to America. I talked about the racism that he endured, the fact that the only reason he even got his position at the University of Chicago, where he made so many influential contributions, was because like the president of the university personally intervened to like get him hired, because otherwise the people in charge of hiring him were like, nah, we're not gonna hire a brown person. So he was the first person of color to be hired at the University of Chicago. That's also something that was significant about him. He talked about he and his wife's decision to and process to become citizens of the US, what that was like. Talked about how, you know, when they were traveling, they had a hard time finding hotels that would allow them to stay there. They had to like ask around, like, oh, there's a hotel on the outskirts of that town run by a Japanese couple, and they let me stay there last time, so they'll let you stay there, like that sort of thing. And then all of his incredible accomplishments. He was just a workaholic astrophysics machine who published so many papers, like published multiple papers a year, also taught classes, advised PhD students, and like turned the University of Chicago's astrophysics journal into like a nationally respected, prestigious journal that he ran by himself basically for years, until finally, I think his wife was like, I want to spend more time with you. You are literally never home. And he was like, okay, and over the next couple of years, I'll transition the journal into not being under just me. And the journal, like it used to be just him, and then was replaced by a team of 13 people. What? That's insanity. Insanity. This man had supernatural abilities to get things done because he was doing that. He was running the journal at the same time as being a professor and a researcher and putting all these essential insights into astrophysics, while also being a South Asian man in mid-century America. I also loved that he was alive and at like the height of his activity at the same time as Einstein, but also at the same time as Gandhi and Nehru and all these important things happening in India. When he was a student, he was active in the independence movement of India. He talked about his experiences in India as a student, his experiences in the UK as a student. He studied in Germany for a little bit. He went and worked in the Netherlands for a little bit, and then he finally came to America in the late 30s. Just all that was like, and then also just kind of the influence of his family, the pressures of his family. Okay, those are all the things that I really liked and were really exciting for the most part. This one did get 4 stars. I took 1 star off because it's very clearly a book about an astrophysicist by another physicist. It is well written. The author has his own voice that I enjoyed, and it's very readable, but there were a couple parts within the narrative where it just kind of starts going off about drama and politics with specific people in the astrophysics community at the time, where I'm like, who are these people? Why does this matter? I don't know what's going on, and I don't know why I should care. Also, when it didn't quite explain a lot of astrophysics concepts as understandable of a way as I would have liked, that does make it feel like it was written for other physicists who maybe already know about this guy. And like, that's fine, but I think the physicists would still like it if it was written to also appeal to the general public, and that I think there's a lot of valuable insight in the general public into astrophysics and the experience of being Asian American during this time period. I really think this had the potential to be more wider reaching, but instead seems to really be aimed at the physics community. That was a bit tough for me to get through sometimes. Of like, what's going on? Who are these people? What black holes? What? So that was why I took 1 star off. But despite those things that I didn't like so much, I still learned so much about this wonderful, apparently flawless, perfect, beautiful man who never hung out with his wife. But it's okay because he figured out black holes. Yeah, I learned so much about this genius, beautiful, fashionable, kind, caring, wonderful lecturing man. It was just a little physicsy sometimes for me, but still really glad that I read it and got this insight into his experience. So that's everything that I read for AAPI, AANHPI Heritage Month. Please comment down below what you have read for AAPI Heritage Month and let me know if any of these sound good to you that you want to read. Thank you so much. I will see you next time.